is up, guys? This is Alex from First Figures.
Hey everyone, this is Chuckles.
Who do we have here? Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic and Tails! Hey! Now, Chucks, this is in our diorama line.
Yes.
It is the fourth in that series.
Yes.
My God, now this has been in our mind for many years. I'm so pumped that we've finally got to this stage, Chucks, where here we are doing this documentary, talking everything there is to know about the design process, why we decided to do things the way that we did, all that good stuff. And if this is the first time you've ever seen one of our making of documentaries, Chucks, tell us what that's all about.
Yes, exactly. So this is the making of documentary. So here we have Sonic and Tails. Every time we do a launch, we always make a documentary. As Alex was saying, we go through all the hows, whys, buts, etc. So in our club, our First for Figures official Collectors Club on Facebook, in there every time we do a launch, we put a post saying, guys, do you have any questions for us? We will answer as much as we can. And then, here we are. So please enjoy the documentary.
Absolutely. Now this, Chucks, as I said, again, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, it started so long ago.
I think we should start about this background. Look at it. I'm Tails. I'm Tails. Team Tails.
Absolutely, and I'm Team Sonic right now. You can see I've got the blue lights over here, and you've got the orange lights over there. I like the way the new setup has been done. Absolutely, I agree. But Chucks, all right, we've got to get through it, but it's going to be tough because there's so much to talk about.
Indeed.
So much to talk about. But let's get down to it. I believe we have some of the questions that you were talking to me about just a minute ago.
Okay.
Let's go through them right now then.
Should we start spinning this?
All right, let's do it. So much to see.
Flying.
Boom.
All right. Okay, straight away. Question number 1 from Ricky Underdog Powell. How different was the approach and difficulty to this more vertical piece in comparison to previous Sonic pieces? And next question from Nanase. How did you narrow down the choices for the base with so many Sonic games that featured this flying pose?
You know, that's a really great couple of questions, and I feel like you can't really talk about the approach to this piece without really talking about, more so with the diorama, which is part of the diorama series. I feel like you have to look at it all together. Whereas, if you look at some of the other previous pieces we made, certainly in the Sonic line, usually what we have is we have the figure itself, and then we have the base. I mean, it's kind of like an afterthought. When I say that is, you work on the pose, and then you figure out how is it going to fit on the base. That's kind of what we would do with our previous Sonic big statues, where you're focusing mainly on the character itself. This, though, is a diorama where we're actually focusing on the whole thing, and you can't just look at the Sonic pose with Tails and go, we're just going to work on that, without really considering the overall piece itself. And that really comes to the whole reason why it's part of the diorama series. And a lot of the times when you look at our other diorama series, if you recall the Sonic Generations one, maybe Ting and Enoch can do an overlay there. The original Sonic Generations one, they're doing poses based on the fact that they're going downhill and they're doing a jump, all that sort of stuff.
The classic Sonic and the modern Sonic together.
Absolutely, and you really have to consider that their movement and their pose is absolutely influenced by the base. And there's no ifs or buts.
Well, the whole point of diorama is also it tells a story.
Exactly. It takes the scene overall, right? Now, if you look at the second in the series, of course, that is Sonic on the biplane, so we call it the Tornado series. Now that, of course, is Sonic and Tails again, but this time, again, Sonic he's riding the biplane, and Tails is obviously he's piloting, etc., etc.
If you guys didn't know, so that's another nice scene.
That's right, and that kind of, and then we go into the 25th anniversary Sonic, of course, where it's the overall checkpoint going across the end goal
Green Hill Zone.
Green Hill Zone, and it's the entirety thing, including the sign, which really gives us that diorama feeling. Now we're looking at this one. This is the fourth in that series, and again, you can't really just think of it on its own. Now we've been talking about Sonic and Tails in this helicopter iconic pose for so many years, but we always didn't.
We haven't invented flags.
We've been waiting for that to be invented, to be honest with you. But we thought, it's been 5 years since we first talked about it. Maybe we should just really understand that. And so levitating technology is not going to come anytime soon.
There's only
and let's get on with it.
Dust.
We tried it, sprinkle. We carefully looked at that Harry Potter series to see if there was anything we could do, but unfortunately, still there's no technology to have it not be levitating on its own. So this has been something that has always been in the back of our mind for such a long time that we've really gone through quite a lot of different ideas and thought of how to actually do this. So let's just go back to Ricky Honorable Powell. How different was the approach and difficulty to this more vertical piece in comparison to previous Sonic pieces? Well, again, going back to what I said, the single characters with their bases, I mean, it's not even close. It's way, way, way harder to think about this piece because it's got that verticalness to it. And the fact that it's a diorama piece, and diorama pieces are harder than the single statue one, simply because you've got to think about them all together, whereas it's not like make the character and then add the base. It really is something that you have to kind of look at overall. Again, the Sonic 25th anniversary couldn't have just been done in isolation. We had to really think about the overall thing. The Sonic on the biplane, the tornado, etc., has to be thought as a unit. Generations, the same thing, and no different for this Sonic and Tails diorama here. Now, really, the difficulty though for this piece had a bigger challenge than the others in the diorama series, and that of course is to give that sense of feeling that he's flying. So really, 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 really tough, this piece in particular compared to the others, and that is probably the reason why it's been development hell for such a long time, and why it's so happy that we're here to finally be able to show you guys and really to sort of go into all of that. So how much difficult, this vertical piece is incredibly harder than the other pieces itself, and really excited that we got here.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Nanase, so how do you narrow it for the bases? There's so many games with this flying pose. Well, that's a really good question, and again, this really highlights the fact that we can't just look at the diorama piece on its own. We have to, as in the pose on its own, we have to really think about it overall with the base itself. Now, there were quite a lot of different things that we talked about back in the day, Chocks, when we were going through this. And the first one was, a long time ago, was the original idea was doing on Rexon. And he's a character, he looks like a Loch Ness monster, he's like pink. He comes out the lava pool and he shoots at you and all that sort of stuff. And we thought, originally, way back when, hey, maybe we're going to do it on Rexon. But then you know what, it just, for me, for both of us, we looked at that concept and we thought, well, how do you do it? He's either, how do you connect him, connect them to Rexon? Do you stick it on his head? That looks stupid. He shoots at you as well. Is it energy blast that comes out of his mouth that connects to the piece, that's suspended in the air? Well, then he's been hit. That's not good either. Stick him to the neck. That looks weird. If you look at the actual game, they're going over him, or this, and it just really didn't make sense for the initial thought. And we went, all right, we'll revisit it once we sort of have a sort of think about that. So it was really something that was quite, how do I say, that we had to really sort of pause and think about it. And do you know what, Chocks? So you guys might not know about this, but Chockles knew about First Figures actually predominantly through the Sonic line. Mm-hmm. You're a huge Sonic fan, and it was actually how you actually knew about us in the first place. Sonic and Shenmue, that was sort of back when we were doing that. That's when you actually heard about First Figures, and I believe your first one was Metal Sonic.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Metal Sonic. And PlayAsia? Something like that. I think so. But whatever it was, because this is when you were in Hong Kong. And you know what? When you joined the company, and I knew that you were such a huge Sonic fan, I said, "Oh, by the way, we got this idea, Rexon." And you went, "Well, that's stupid as hell." I went, "Yeah, you're right. So come on then, what do we do?" And then we sort of sat down, and it was like a really great example of two heads are better than one. We goes, how can we do it? So why don't you sort of? I mean, you were really, really involved with that whole idea. So did you give some more of your experiences on that? Because I was sitting going, "Oh, Chocks, Rexon," and you're like, "What are you talking about, Alex?"
I can't remember everything, but
right.
as a Sega Sonic fan, I'm sure you guys know that everyone understands that when the introduction of Tails came about in Sonic 2, etc., Sonic 3, etc., everyone wanted to have control or race against each other, in the game. So again, having Sonic and Tails together at the same time
I mean, that was for sure. That was the easy part. The easy part is right. We're going to be doing helicopter mode.
Yeah.
And again, you know,
the only problem is that it's just engineering we have to focus on, right? For Sonic and Tails.
It's not just engineering. I think that's a disservice. It actually is the concept of it, and the engineering is later. But forget about the engineering. Just the whole idea of it going on Rexon didn't make sense.
That's right. Yeah, and we also have to think about the others that came as well, because at the time we were working on Sonic 25th, I believe.
Right.
And it's like, okay, Green Hill Zone, okay, yeah, the Infinity, you know, all that stuff, that makes sense, perfect sense.
Right.
And it's like, okay, should we do another Green Hill Zone? It's like, it's all been done before, right? Or the loop,
we did, we'd get in trouble.
Right, and we wanted like, okay, what is iconic? And we thought, hey, we haven't done Sonic 3.
We haven't. We've done quite a lot of things that have not been particularly to Sonic 3, specifically on that.
Right. And it's like, hey, why not, you know, follow the story after the biplane, coming down to the Angel Island.
There you go. And it's a great follow-on piece. If we just put aside 25th anniversary, which is, of course, is a diorama, but actually it's a 25th anniversary piece. It's a kind of anniversary piece.
Yeah.
And if you think about the way it followed on from the biplane, and you think about then this is the next one after that, it makes perfect sense. And the reason why is that, Chucks, is because obviously you're on the biplane and you're going across the beginning of Sonic and Sonic 3, etc. And that's where we are. So tell us a little bit of what happens after you're on the biplane. Obviously, if you're a Sonic fan, you're going to know this, but for those that aren't too sure what that is, and
well, I'm not going to go into detail. I might. It's been out for a while, but some people might not have played it. I don't want to spoil it. So
well, we kind of have to do a little bit. I mean,
but anyways, so eventually they came across this island. So
and that's called
Angel Island.
There you go.
Okay, the floating island.
Right.
So they came along there. Obviously, they met up. Well, Knuckles was at the beginning as well.
Right.
In the intro, and then again, they fall over, stolen the gems, etc., etc.
How very dare you.
I know. So, but having the idea of Sonic and Tails on that level, and combining that with the way it's floating, it made sense because we could use the vines.
It's a lot of jungle feeling to it, right?
Yeah, tropical jungle.
All that sort of allowed for us to have. How do I say it?
That's why that idea was better than the.
Yeah, and the reason why for Rexon didn't work is because if he was going to connect to Rexon, it really didn't make any sense because you're getting attacked by him.
Right.
To have him connected to his neck, on his head didn't make sense as well. That didn't make any sense. So it really made. I love the fact that we could take something like a tree, a vine, something like that from the jungle feeling, and bend it in a way that still looked natural. But lent it to have some support for the actual figurine itself. And of course you can see from the shot, the most amazing feeling is that it's in the air, that they're in the air, and the feeling is that they're in the air. And if you look at it from the front on, it's really done in a way that is quite clever.
It's also jungle type feeling. You can add, there's a lot of details, the vines, the greenery, the tree trunks.
Absolutely.
The rocks.
And you can kind of, and if you look from the side, which is a really great angle to see it from here, it really looks like he's floating over the top, which is to give that feeling of flying.
If we just stop this for now, like that. So if we're in the game, obviously,
straight on the
Mega Drive,
horizontal
game,
side scrolling.
From left to right.
Yeah, it's actually exactly like that. Like that.
Yeah, so you can imagine Tails is just picking up Sonic going off above the enemies or hazards.
Absolutely.
So it just made sense.
You're absolutely right. And it was quite interesting is that we wouldn't imagine if it was Rexon, we would have to manipulate his neck in a way that would be the suspension point. But again, the whole concept didn't make any sense. So I was like, Chokes, what do we do? And this is where we sort of we went through that.
And then we spent quite a lot of time because we were doing that as well as the Sonic 25th at the same time, right?
Well, you were absolutely.
And it was because we did touch on the Green Hill Zone for the Sonic 25th, and it's kind of like let's try and choose a different what do we call it? A different zone.
Absolutely. So it really allowed for us to therefore be quite creative once we knew where we were going to go, and that we weren't going to be doing Rexon, and we were going to be doing it in a certain island, and we stuck with this idea. Then we went crazy. We said, okay, well, First of all, we've nailed that whole idea of how we can keep them in the air.
Yeah.
Right? So, going back to... So that really answers Nanasei's sort of question, right?
Okay.
In terms of at least the base.
The base, yeah.
Because we're looking at it overall. And it kind of goes back to Ricky's question about how difficult. The answer is really difficult. So we've solved those problems now. And we're like, right, that bit is done. And that's the hardest bit. And then we said, you know what? Now we've got it in the air. We've chosen the base. Now we can just go crazy with the choices of things. Now the question is, why are they in the air? They're helping each other.
Yep.
But the reality is, Tails is helping Sonic go over obstacles that maybe he's like helping him out. So we have to create a sense of danger. And another reason why we chose Angel Island, spoiler, well, there are lots of flames going over here, Chops. What is that all about?
That happens halfway through Act 1.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's the flamecraft that come along.
Yeah.
That pesky Eggman comes along and just bloody torches the whole place over, right?
That's right.
So all of a sudden you have this lush green forest, a tropical jungle, beautiful.
Yeah, all different shades of greens.
Beautiful, right?
And all of a sudden it's all in flames.
The background is orange and it's got this, the flames are spouting everywhere, you're just like, oh my god.
Oh, it's not happy.
It's not
a
happy.
happy scene. So we've done some happy dioramas, right?
Right.
Some kind of like, bright, colourful, vibrant.
Sure.
Now it's kind of like I wouldn't say the dark side, but it's kind of more on the serious side.
Sure, and actually that's actually reflected in the actual face. If you look at the face of, Sonic and Tails, it's a bit more downturn. It's not happy. It's not smiling.
It's an angry expression.
So
determined,
it's
angry,
determined.
frustrated.
Absolutely, sure. So if you go back to this horizontal view, remember if you're imagining that you're going across the zone like that, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to come up with the danger, and we did that in a couple of ways. And the first one, as we said, Chocs, this beautiful fire effect.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you have these crazy huge flames coming here. Crazy huge flames. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right? Yeah. Danger. 5 areas of just fire all over the place. But what's interesting, Chocs, is we didn't just have these random bits of fire and make it the original green. We matched the palette of the actual game, gave it much more oranges and yellows and muted browns and not vibrant colors, and toned down the green. I mean, this was originally this luscious green forest. It's now sort of getting burnt up. And if you look at the colors of the fire, it's got this blackening effect at the top. You see that, Chocs? You see the way it blackens at the top. But we didn't just do that, Chocs. We actually applied a kind of feeling like it was on fire directly to the paint itself. You see, this is obviously orange, and yes, this is orange. You could technically just make the greens muted, but we didn't just do that, Chocs. Can you talk a little bit about how we have these colorings around the actual flames?
Yeah.
How that affects and how you can see.
It's like when you turn on the lights at home, where the lights bounces off that wall. You have that kind of, even though it's a dark room, when you turn on the lights, you have some kind of variations of the lights blending into the background. So it's kind of the same situation here, where right now you can see the flames, bright oranges and yellows, and the way it casts off the branch.
And here's a really great example right here. Look, you see how yellow it is over here,
Yeah.
and how muted it is over here. Normally, if it was just going to be one color, it would be all the same, just with some oranges. But we wanted to give that feeling that it really comes across over there. And we've applied that logic over here as well, Charles. So you see, this is a different color to this area here, where it has a sense of light source. The light source casts the light on things around it. I mean, a really obvious example is these spikes, Charles. Let's talk about those spikes.
Yeah, the spikes. So one of the hazards in the game. So
step 1,
Yep.
the flames themselves.
Yep, that's where Sonic and Tails has to avoid.
Step 2, these spikes. Now, in the game, you fly over these spikes. What happens, Chocs? Well, no, they're not spikes when you go over them. But what comes out the ground?
Spikes.
That's a different lesson. So you can see these 4 spikes coming out of the ground, and you know how they just come out like that, right? As you're going past it, come straight up, and then they retract and go up and stuff like that, which is a really kind of another sense of danger that you have to get past. I don't know how many times you've lost a lot of your coins, your rings, by hitting those spikes. But focusing on those spikes and then focusing again on the fire source.
Yeah, you can see from the nearest to the ground. You can see the flames casting off too.
There you go. You can see it has those oranges, because normally the spikes would be just one color.
Yep.
And that color would be that kind of silver color, right? But what have we done here? We have added this yellowy orange flame reflection thing going on the actual spikes itself. And
that's the second danger, right?
that is absolutely the second danger. So we really wanted to give that feeling of the light source itself. And you can even see the way it kind of catches the light source even at this area here, some subtle areas. For example, it's like the tips over here.
Yeah.
The tips over here have a little bit of orangey yellow to it that is coming from the light source, over here as well. Now, if you take a look, again, it's the areas that are being affected. Another good example is there's a light source coming from over here, or at least maybe from this fire over here. Can you see at the bottom of this tree trunk? Again, we're talking about how that the tree trunk would just be all brown. Yes, we know it's on fire. Yes, it's more muted, but it would be that the whole tree trunk would be brown. The whole of the leaves and the kind of moss and the kind of the colors of the greens have now been muted down to more browns and more and sort of yellows and stuff like that. But it would all be in one color. I really like the way that we've added this kind of sort of this effect where there is no light source really on, but we're giving the feeling that there is, and that the light from the natural light that would come from a real flame is now being pushed and enhanced onto the actual surrounding area. For me,
it gives a bit more intensity. So the stronger the flames are, where the main parts are, the surrounding area has much more of the orange glow.
And you can really see that. Look at that. That's really obvious there.
So the fires on this side, you can see underneath the trunk has the orange glow.
Yeah.
Even underneath Sonic himself.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Very good. But it's we actually played about with that when we first did it. I was like, damn, it's like half bloody Tails because you're making him so bloody orange.
yeah.
So we just wanted it a little bit more subtle. So just the very bottoms of the tips have got that glow, and you'll find it, Chogs, is more on this side than it is on this side, and the reason why is, well, this light source.
Yeah.
So we haven't just randomly gone, okay, we're going to have a little bit of red here, a little bit of orange. We actually considered, where is the source coming from? Where is the source coming from? So this one is affecting this side of the tree trunk, not so much over here because, it's sort of going over there. All of these sort of things were actually quite considered.
Same with the rocks as well. So the flames right next to the rocks, you can see the much brighter orange, and then you can see that on the edges of the rocks, it kind of has more of a black burn marks because the flames and the fires have been right next to it.
Now, of course, Chogs, there is an elephant in the room that we haven't. Oh, shall I say a rhino in the room? You see what I did there?
Yes.
Now, we talked about, recap this one more time, the danger that...
The fire.
The fire.
Danger. The second is the spikes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And anything else there, Chogs? For the first time we've ever done one of these, a badnik. For the first time ever.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah? In any of our statues ever.
True, yeah. We should do some more. Is that right, guys?
Let us know what you think. Because check out this cutie.
Rhinobot.
This is the Rhinobot, and he is really, really, really cute. I think he's so cute, Chogs. He's coming along. He's got this mono wheel.
Wait, it's not cute. This is the danger.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. This is the, put some fear into Sonic and Tails.
Well, clearly they're very concentrating on that as well. But tell us a little about the Rhinobots and what they do in the game.
Well, in the game, again, they're rare enemies. So you can see along the path, the Rhinobot will just go zoom in, charging at Sonic and Tails.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
charge attack.
Charge attack. So it was, if you have a look, there is this kind of tread, I would call it, the tire tread. It's kind of like, it's like he's been zooming on it right there. Do you see that, Chuck? It's going across over there. And it's really hard to see maybe from this camera, but if you zoom right in, you can really kind of see that he has this great, the wheel.
Chunky tires.
Chunky tire with a tread going around it, and it's got that grip on it. Allows him to go really, really quickly, zoom across like that. And
a nice set of wheels.
Wheel.
That's right.
And it was such a fun project to work on, to really go wild with it. Because, you know, it's kind of low-res 2D, and you kind of like looking at sprites, and then you're looking at the original footage, the original...
Yeah, and then the levels were flat.
Right, and also there was an official artwork which we've just been sort of studying from all different angles and looking at the difference between the 2D sprites and the artwork, and trying to sort of get an amalgamation between the two, and I think we've done a really great job of sort of capturing that. As it's turning, Chalks, I just want to sort of show you, have a look at this over here. Again, this is talking about the intensity. It's coming from here. There's a light source that's coming over that you don't see over here, right, Chalks? And that's another example of the casting of the light, giving a sort of ring of light to something that we sort of added that to it.
Probably trying to run away from the fire.
Yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit more about the actual piece itself and the actual design, the details that you see, the actual pose he's in, etc., etc.
Yeah, so, the third danger, obviously Rhino bot. So now we have the whole story right in this picture here, right in the statue. So you can imagine that with the fire, with the spikes, with Rhino bot, or going against Sonic and Tails, that's why we have Tails coming here, save the day, taking flight, and off they go, to act 2 or something.
Right.
So, again, the details, look at it let's start from the top, shall we?
Alright, sure, yeah, let's do it. I was going to say about Rhino, but let's just do the whole thing. Let's go through the whole thing, yeah.
So, for example, the Tails here, you can see that everything's all sculpted. You can see the nice chunky tails spinning, the way it's sculpted. It has some thickness, has some layers.
And the thickness to it is there's thicker at the top and thinner into the middle, and there's a beautiful translucency to it that you can actually see, that you can actually, maybe, I don't know if you can sort of see it. You can see my finger going underneath it, I guess.
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely sort of see it, that you can really get that feeling that it's in motion, and it has this helicopter feeling.
Yeah.
So one of the things we haven't really talked about is the actual pose of these two themselves. And we actually had before we actually go into the details, sorry, Chucks, we haven't really talked about the actual pose itself.
Okay.
And of course we just sort of said, they're together and they go over. But one of the things that we had to really consider is this, Chucks, and I'll bring you over here. When you actually look at the original game itself, Tails is actually a little bit more hunched over, and what happens is his body is more horizontal, and his head is kind of looking down. His head is looking down in the actual game itself, and he's kind of like doing that, and his head is much further down, and actually his tail himself is a little bit more horizontal. Now, we took a bit of creative liberty here, Chalks, and the reason why is because depending on how you decide to display your piece, because this is quite an amazing piece that you can display it old school side scrolling, right? So we wanted to make sure it looked great like this. We also made sure that it looked great in a 3/4 view. Maybe people want to do it in the 3/4 view, but also people may want to see it from the front as well. Now, one of the things is, when we were doing the design, if we had it like in the original one, this whole thing would be turned downwards, and you would not see Tails' beautiful face. You wouldn't see the facial features, you wouldn't see his body. All you would really see is too much of the tail itself. And we found that it was going to be a bit of a shame that it was going to be like that. So we actually slightly angled it upwards and gave the feeling as if you're a helicopter, you kind of get a little bit of, so he's not going this way, he's kind of sort of going a little bit of a 45-degree angle. And in order to get that feeling, Chucks, you have to slightly, we took a bit of creative liberty there, slightly gave it, if you can see it from here, a bit of a tilt over here. Now, you could argue, Chucks, that, you could still keep this angle and have this flat. You could argue that, but I would say argue all you want, because you can't. And the reason why you can't is because you have the idea of the head turning upwards, right? So you can see his face, and having the tails completely horizontal would have collision with the ears or the back of his head. And it meant that therefore you can't have it both ways. And we felt visually it was better to have a look on the face than it was to actually have it so that you could see it. See the face rather than having it horizontal and cutting into the back of the head and then tilting it down. So that's a design decision that we actually consciously made right at the very beginning, Chocks. We said right at the very beginning, that's how we're going to design it.
No, I just like the whole thing where it's about to lift off. So it's perfect timing. So they timed the flight exactly at the point where...
Just missed Rhino. Imagine the feet, right? He's lifting up his feet. He's just missing the Rhinobot's nose, or the horn, I should say, lifting up his his feet.
So he's already past the spikes.
He's gone past the spikes. He's lifted. Yeah,
and
exactly.
The Rhinobot's just charging right at them, so he kind of just skimmed it.
Absolutely. So the pose itself, right? You can see how they're pulling each other, and you can talk a little bit about. Can you see the way that they're holding each other, and it looks like Tails is lifting up Sonic, but of course the reality is that Sonic is actually lifting up, pushing or holding up Tails in the physical world, of course. But it gives a really great impression that actually it's Sonic that is being lifted up by Tails. And so go ahead, Chocks, in terms of the pose. One of the things I said, of course, is the way that these feet are backwards for Tails, but how about for Sonic?
Yeah, I mean, so again, you covered Tails. For Sonic, you can see that he's kind of like, hey, I'm in for the ride. I'm just like hovering there, hanging there,
and the feet is like
feet pointing
upwards. So he's doing one of those ab crunches or something like that, where you got to lift your legs up. That's really painful on your legs. Any of you guys try and hold that for a minute. Let me know in the comments if you can do it.
Yeah, so that's the pose for Sonic with the arms.
Upwards, which makes sense because we know he's got a grip.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual difficulty of the pose, there wasn't any. We knew what we had to do. It was just the kind of practicalities of gripping and the engineering aspect, of course, of that.
Oh yeah, and just to touch on the paint app, you can see the bottom of Sonic Souls. It has some orange painted as well.
Absolutely. All right, so go ahead and go back more into all the detail that we have over here.
So the tail part, you can see that the tip of the tail, where the white part of the fur part is chunkier, as you would expect, and then again, what you say, as it swishes round, it gets thinner as it goes out.
Yes, and then it also has the transparency in there, so you have a thickness. You have a thickness at the beginning of the tails.
That's right.
And then you have a thinness and translucency to the back end of that, and it creates you can really sort of. What am I doing? I guess it's
kind of
I don't even know what I'm doing.
Blur effect as well, the motion.
I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, anyways. You can sort of see my hand sort of.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, so that, and then again with the angry expression, Tails is focusing, moving forwards. Yeah, gripping onto Sonic as you go down. And he's also angry as well.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about. Of course, we've got all the signature details that Sonic needs to have. He has his belt, so he has his shoe buckles, that beautiful yellow.
The bright blue. Should we say?
Yeah. He has a nice white stripe across there as well. Yeah. Let's talk about the base and the details that we actually have on the base itself, Jobs. Going through all the different aspects, some of the vines, some of the textures.
Yeah, look at the tree trunks with all the grooves, the swirls. Even some parts at the side here where like part of the tree, part of the branch is kind of like cut off, snapped off. So you can see the actual the grains around it, the markings. And then
the wood rings.
Yeah. And then with the vines coming down here, down the middle, that's all individually sculpted with all the leaves, the lines, and then this other piece right here on top of the branch. Again, this is a tropical jungle, so you expect a lot of green
foliage.
Yeah, that's right. And then again, this is we're not using magic here. This is the branch that is holding. This is the branch that is holding Sonic, and then it gets bigger as it goes down around the edge. You can see how the wood twists. There's different layers. The way it twists and turns.
It's not just one plane. It's
not like a standard tree, right?
Right.
Like a basic tree.
Absolutely.
This is like the way in tropical jungles, the way
The kind of,
Yeah.
Imagine some monkeys jumping up and down on those. They gotta get on and then go. Anyways.
It's the wrong level. I don't think they had monkeys in them.
No, I know, I'm just imagining in a real...
real world scenario, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then, again, look at the foliage that wraps around this tree trunk. And this whole tree trunk goes all the way around. All the way around.
That's a boost.
Yeah. Before...
And what's underneath it then? You see the stone effect as well.
That's right, before you go to this top surface, which is entirely covered in greenery, and then underneath it...
And you can see the lines drawn on that, sort of sculpted on that.
And the rocks that goes underneath it.
And it's a great example again of the lighting effect. You can really sort of see it as you're turning it and you're focusing on that. If you focus on that, look at the paints on that, Jocks. I mean, we talked about the lighting as well, but you can really kind of see the differences of the way all these areas up here, the way over here, the way it captures the light source. You can see I'd probably actually add a little bit more yellow over there perhaps. It really looks like it really is real flame. Hot!
Yeah, and then again on top of the base you see rocks stacked on top of
Now they're not just, it's not just smooth though, is it, Charles?
No.
It has something slightly like a rock texture to it.
It has like grooves, cracks, and then again the paint app really heightens the way the fire burnt onto the rocks. You can see the burn marks as well. So how many rocks are there? There's one rock on the
Yeah, you've got quite a
side.
few of them, yeah.
And then there's one rock on the front, and another one here.
Would you consider that to be a danger?
Which one?
One of these rocks, would you consider that to be like a hazard? Running too fast and you run into a rock, it's always not very good news, is it?
You just spin attack it and destroy it.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and then as always, the spikes that aren't just stuck on top of the grass. You can see the actual holes.
That is absolutely right, Chops. We had to give the realism feeling that the grass is completely flat. Now imagine is it moles? Would you call them moles?
Moles, yeah.
That come out of the ground, and you can tell the mole holes because it's kind of like a circle. You have like a nice green area, then there's like these little mounds of brown, and that you know that that it's clearly something has come out of that, and that's a mole coming out, for example, right? Maybe even rabbit holes. I don't know, anything sort of that's originally on a green grass, and then you have the soil coming out. Now you have that feeling of it at the very base of those spikes, that it's not just boom, the spikes are on top of the green. It comes out, and you have this kind of sort of bunching of soil going around to make sense when the spikes come out. When the four spikes come out, that you have this kind of ring of dirt and soil, which happens when it comes out because it sort of pushes it out.
That's right. And then again, Rhinobot, as you were saying, translating.
All started back with Rhinobot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at that, the armor plating on that.
Awesome.
You can see the rivets that goes around the edges. The actual.
It's got all these rivets over here, and it's got all these screws.
Yeah, and then you have the stripes for.
And he's in a couple of sections, Chops. It's like 3 sections. He's like a rhino or like an armadillo. He's kind of got this kind of shell to him that is in segments. If you just look from the side over here, you can see he has obviously his head, and then you can see two sections over here. One here and one here. So one here and one here. They're different levels, Chops. You see that? There's a different level there. To give him a bit of movement if he wants to duck his head to attack, lift it up, whatever it may be. He has that ability to move. And it really looks like a shell, the way that you see the uni wheel underneath, that it kind of really fits over that wheel, that one wheel. Now, if you look at the actual paint though, Chocks, it's not just one sort of, I'll call it some sort of metal sort of gunmetal bluey kind of grey kind of colour, right? Of course, we're not talking about the fire effect, which we know, which is there at the back. Can you see though, it has some dirt to it, some rusted effect.
Yeah.
Rhinobot's not new. He's been hanging out on Angel Island for a while, Charles, before Sonic and Tails turned up, and he's been around. There's been typhoons, there's been hurricanes, there's been all manners of stuff going on, and of course, it doesn't help that the whole island's been flamed up. So he's he's not a smooth surface. He has some detail in there, which is sculpted detail of pits and and scratches. That's in the color effect, and some dents in there.
You can see the dirt on the wheels, at the front of the mask, and also at the edges as well, at the bottom, towards the bottom of the armor plate.
Right.
Yeah.
And how about those eyes, Jocks?
Yeah, it's nice.
It has a kind of
nice
gloss to it that's very different to the shine.
Sculpted. It's not flat.
Right. It kind of raised at the black area. And what's important is that it has a very different, don't get me wrong, metal is a little bit shiny. And you can kind of see that kind of effect throughout. You can see the way they're really catching the light here, as an example. But those eyes have a different kind of light gloss to it that you would see on the metal of the actual piece itself. And you can see the gloss really showing off and shining off in those eyes themselves.
Same goes with Sonic and Tails as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Really, really glossy around the whites of the eyes, including the blacks of the pupils for both Sonic and Tails, which is very different to the whites of the shoes, the whites of the gloves. Gives a nice effect. When to really see that shot, you need to catch the light, which obviously this is a studio setting. It really looks good like that. Wow, now that has been
There's a lot to cover, didn't it?
quite the answer to 2 questions. I'll tell you that, Jocks. All right, should we keep on going then?
Okay, so James Tesk, how in the world are you going to make sure Tails and Sonic are supported enough to not have a leaning braking issue? With so much weight support relying on those arms, I feel that is a recipe for disaster. Wow.
Well, Chocks,
Man of concern.
there is a bush. There is a bush, and James is not beat about it, okay? He's going straight to the question. He's asking, how is this going to stay like this for years to come? And that is a great question. Now, we have completely made these arms, this whole section here,
Sonic's arms and Tails' arms,
in metal. Now, right now, these are actually in pewter metal, which has a brittleness to it that is not going to be in the final one. We're going to be making steel molds for those to I believe, don't quote me exactly, I need to just double check that with our engineering team. But right now these have been done for the prototype. It's done in pewter. It stands up. Obviously, it holds the pose. Yep. The question, though, of course, is when we have the actual production version, because what we do is we have to make it first, Jocks, like this. We can't. When I say we do it in pewter first, we do it because in case we submit it to Sega for approval, of course, and they're like, oh no, change that or change that. Well, if we've already made it, the molds to make it in metal, it could be quite costly. So we do it just enough for the prototype, and then when it's time for actual production, when everything's approved by Sega, we then make those to add that stability to it. So that's definitely something that we'll be following up with in the actual production process. Yeah. And of course, we'll be posting all of that information in the club as well. So make sure you do check that out as we go through production for that. So it's definitely something that we will be looking into. I mean, when I say looking into it, we know what we're doing, but we will, having not done it yet, we can't say exactly how it is right now, but of course, rest assured, we're going to be making sure that it goes through our typical scrutiny, which is going to be drop tests, aging tests, the aging tests and transit tests, all that sort of stuff. We're going to be making sure that they get the thumbs up. And we've paused projects where we've had to change things, and this would be no different should that be the case. So I'm absolutely confident in our engineering team that they've initially said to us that they don't have any issues with that. Right. I just want, obviously,
just to make sure, of course.
Absolutely.
All right. Measurements.
Chocks, let's do this now.
Yes.
This is the world's smallest base here. That means I can't do this measurement properly.
Oh yeah.
What it does though is...
I would say it's about half a can, right?
Half a can, yeah?
Yeah, for the turntable.
That's fair enough. Yeah,
okay.
that's
We'll give or take half a can.
A little bit, yeah, that's a good part. All right, so we're going to call that 1 here. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, just
basic maths, right?
Stack it up and just take away half.
That's pressure on my maths there, Chocks. I feel like, why does it feel like it's coming?
Yeah, move it, push it forwards.
Yeah. All right then, Choc. So what we have over here, therefore this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cans. Really, it's more like just under 5 cans, I would say. It's like 4.8 if you minus half a can from that. It's like 4. And these are 330 ml cans for our American audience. You guys are usually 350 or 355. We're gonna figure that out eventually. I was just in the US and I didn't really look. I think it is 350 over there. But I'll still always ask. So, if you consider a 330 can, about 4.8 of those Chocs, and that is something that we consider. And again, with the Resin, to consider, I think that would actually make them even taller than that. And we wanted to have this as a self-contained, because that's pretty tall, you know, Chocs. We didn't want to be unnecessarily tall. I think we compacted a lot of detail and not wasted any space here, Chocs.
Yeah, it's a nice rounded area. I mean, like you can see the flames coming out here and the tree trunk coming across. It's a nice rectangle space.
And it's got both sides as well. It's really good use of it's not much wasted negative space. Yeah. I would say actually probably our worst, the piece that has probably the never mind.
All right, so I'm
the
gonna do
actual
mine.
sizes,
So, okay guys, so from the bottom of the base, so the bottom of the base to the very top of the tails, the helicopter. That is 20 inches, so that's 51 centimeters. Okay, 51 centimeters, 20 inches high. For width, I have it, where Alex's hand's there. So right at the edge of the fire, to the edge of this tree trunk. I have that at 17 inches, so that's 44 centimeters. And for the depth, which is going to be at the front here, the front of that fire, at the front of the base, the back of the tree trunk / vine, I have that at 15 inches. 15 inches in depth, so that's 38 centimeters.
Now, the only thing I just want to say, Chocs, to you guys as well, is that it really depends on how you decide to display your Sonic piece. Now, we believe that this can be displayed in 3 ways. We said at the very beginning. We'll go over that one more time, Chocs. It could be this way.
Side view.
Which is purely old school. Then you can do a 3/4 view, which is more of an isometric view like that. And then you have a completely front-on view. I believe those are the real choices. And what you just said was based on a 3/4 view. Is that right, Chocs?
Right, 3/4 view.
Okay, so if you decide to do it in you have an approximation on the size, I should say, based on what Choc was given. And the weight, Chocs, because this thing is turning on its own, it's so bloody heavy.
Yes, so the weight I have is 7.13 kg.
You need to work out there, Chocs.
Yeah, so this is just based on the statue, and obviously this is just an estimate, because when we go into production, there could be things change, we're adding proper metal, etc., and we're going to consider, the actual base itself. So give or take is around 7.13 kg.
Alright, for real. Alright, cool.
Right. Next.
Yeah.
Shoutouts. Wow. So guys, as I said earlier, in the First for Figures Official Collectors Club, when we make this post, in there I'll randomly add a comment. The first 10 people to reply to that comment will get a shout out from Alex. So over to you.
Boom, let's do it. Tyler Cady, shout out to you. Derek Baker in the house. Marco Castellani, how you doing, mate? We got MAD in the house. What's going on? Lisa Wyckoff, shout out to you. We got Brandon Evans in the house. We also have a shout out to Brendan Rossello, one of our lovely admins. We got Michael Grubbs. How you doing? We also have Kevin Strupa. And last but not least, Miguel Pilot. Boom! How was that, Chocs?
Perfect.
Alrighty.
Alright, one more question. Elaine Kennedy, excited to see this piece. I don't have any questions not asked already, but I'm really curious in what the exclusive will be.
Exclusive, you say? Oh, right. So in case you don't know about our company, we do 2 versions. And the usually one is, we call it the standard version, which is this is right here, Chocs. This is the standard version. And we also have an exclusive version only available on our website.
That's right,
And if you pay attention to what we do here at First Figures, I'm not going to give you any prizes for guessing what that might be. It's kind of our thing. And you may have noticed there is a little button over here, Chocs, which we may or may not be moving somewhere else, right over here. But over to you, Chocs.
Okay.
What happens when you push that button?
Boom!
Check that out, guys. Now you can see, let's give it a bit of a turn.
As we did say this is a Inferno, Flame,
Absolutely.
Fiery Base.
So the beauty of this is, Chocks, now the actual light that is cast on the actual statue itself that we painted on is emphasized and accentuated by the fact that we have real LED lights actually inside the piece
fires,
itself,
yeah.
the actual fire itself. I really like the way that this has that. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, guys, this is in a studio lighting, super bright over here, but you can still really get the feeling of that. And when it's darker, it's going to look brighter itself.
Yeah.
Maybe we can slightly up the intensity. I would probably say I'd like to see that a little bit.
That'd be quite cool.
Yeah, just slightly up the intensity a little bit more. And I love the way that, maybe because I'm looking up here, but you can see it's really stronger over here. Maybe we can try and get a little bit more inside itself, but overall, it has this great feeling to it. Now, Chocks, if you look at the button to the side of it, there also is as it's coming around to the front, something else over there. What is that next to it?
The thing that's next to the button, that is a USB port.
So we can put a micro USB in there. Next to there is a LED indicator as well.
LED indicator. So we do as always with our light up bases, we have a internal interchangeable battery. So we use, normally for these pieces, we use a 1865 volt battery.
Yep.
And that is rechargeable. So if you ever need to replace it, all you have to do is just swap a new one out, and that's done.
And they're really easy to get hold of.
Yeah, easy to get hold of. Yeah. If you don't want to use battery, you can just use the included USB cables that we have in the packaging, so you can have that permanently plugged in as well.
Sweet. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, Chocks, this is not just one version in terms of the lights. This is always on mode, but
always
if you
on mode, yes.
push it one more time, Chocks.
Oh,
there it is.
Boom!
Boom! And now this has this kind of.
Oh, you can see it.
You can really see it pulsing.
Yeah.
To get that kind of flickering that you have with the actual real fire. Fortunately, I don't have. I've never been on an island that's on fire, but I believe it will be something like this, right? We have this kind of flickering effect, which really gives a little bit more life to it. Of course, it's always difficult to give a sense of motion to something that's static. The pose itself really complements that with the way that it's moving and it's rotating. So the feeling that it's rotating. But it's nice to actually have a bit of motion actually in the statue. We do that through the use of the LEDs themselves to give the feeling of, turning on, etc., and the movement of that. Yeah, it's really good the way it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which version would you keep on? Always on, or?
Well, the animated mode.
You keep on animated mode. Yeah.
The question is, which angle would you put it on? Would you have it on an isometric view, like 2.5D-ish kind of thing, or would you have it in the old school style?
Or would you have it straight on? Let us know in the comments what you would do. All right, Chocks. Do we have any more questions?
Well, questions, yeah.
Oh, I have a question for you. What about the measurements on this?
Measurements on this one?
On the exclusive version.
It's going to be exactly the same as the standard edition.
Boom! Of course, the only change, of course, is the LEDs in there, and that has no effect on the actual size.
Yep. All right, next question from Brenton Frigley. I love the Sonic Panorama line. What's next?
Sweet! I appreciate the support on that.
Yeah, what is next?
I was thinking it's probably time to look at either classic Robotnik, maybe in a fight like that, maybe look at a Mon line, where we could have Mon diorama, that might be so cool. There's quite a lot of things that we could do. But more importantly, what would you guys like to see? We would love to hear from you guys.
Another anniversary piece.
Is it that time of the year? Is that time? Has it been that 5 years? Is that time again?
Every 5 years, maybe?
Well, I think we're 27 years into it right now. I think we've probably get started on 30th. I think it's probably a good idea. So absolutely, Chocks. What do you guys want to see? We'd love to hear from you guys. What do you want to see? Modern, classic, what characters, more badniks,
which
what
game?
we do.
Yeah, which Sonic game?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, next question from Brandon Dando. Would you consider a companion piece?
That's a great question.
Nice.
So companion pieces is really typically where you have something where it's the main piece, and then you can have some things that you can put alongside it that makes sense. And I think great companion pieces would be single badniks. Would you guys be up for that? Small base, have a badnik on it, and you can go buy a bunch of different ones that you can put with it. Hey, that would be a really cool way. You could
or even the pickups. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, little TV boxes.
Nice. Some goalposts here and there on their own. You can sort of create
a bunch of rings.
Look at that, real time
That's right.
thinking, thought processes. I love it. maybe in the future we'll have a companion piece video. Go, hey, do you remember that time when we had the Sonic and Tails diorama video? That's when we came up with the idea.
Yeah, the checkpoint on a big massive bonus ring.
All right.
Or that monkey that you wanted on.
Absolutely. I just randomly said monkeys in real jungles, I would say. My goodness, I feel like this is something that you're going to be mentioning to me every single time.
Sweet.
Sweet. So, again, we're going to show this one on a horizontal view. What's interesting though is, Chocks, this Sonic and Tails diorama is not quite the only thing that we have. We have a little something else, and we're going to show that in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, guys. This is the
Tropical Jungle Edition.
Now, if you consider the previous one, that was the Sonic and Tails diorama, right?
That's right, yeah.
And then the exclusive version, the standard and the exclusive version. Now this, as you just said, is the Tropical Jungle Edition, right? And we have quite a difference here, Chocks.
That's right.
Over to you. You go ahead.
We're taking a big step back. So right at the beginning of Act 1.
There you go.
Angel Island. Boom! All nice and beautiful before things start to go to hell.
So
halfway through the level.
We will do, of course, a comparison shot soon, but it's important just to sort of, and we'll show you the differences between them side by side. It's going to be easier. But let's talk about some of the differences just visually now, and
I mean,
some differences.
First off, obvious one is obviously the greenery. So much more green here compared to the previous one.
And the green itself is much more vibrant, much more green.
Green, yeah. So lots of different dark greens, bright greens, especially the vine area. You know, if you see the comparison photo later, you can tell the difference where, this section is actually green, whereas the other one is all covered in flames and different oranges. And you can see how it's much more easier to see here, where the greens are wrapped around that branch, that trunk, how it goes all the way around the edge. It's like a snake.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it goes all the way around here. And then previously, you can see where the trunk, the roots, of the actual tree bit, it wraps around. But on the other version, it's like
you can't really see.
It's all in fire.
It's on fire.
It's on fire. Yeah. And now you can see the rocks. It's so much clearer now. There's no burnt marks. You still get the cracks and the dirt, the wear and tear that you see with rocks and cracks and stuff. But now you can see the rocks clearly. And at the bottom, obviously, dirt is still the same dirt, the earth, and then the earth around the spikes. Again.
Doesn't have the yellow. I mean, the spikes themselves doesn't have the actual oranges that's on it as well.
Right.
It's going to be super more obvious when we actually put them side by side.
Yeah. And look at the round bottom. It's so much clearer now. It's less busy compared to the other version.
Sure.
Like this one is like nice and peaceful, calm.
And it's so peaceful and calm. Look how happy they are.
Yeah, that's right. So this is where you got to go in there and look at the finer details. You can see Tails and Sonic themselves are all cheerful and happy.
And the reason why I'm thinking is exactly. They're not scared at all.
But Roundabout is there, still have the same expression.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have a face. Well, he doesn't have, well, he's still just going for him, right? So you're absolutely right, Chogs. They're going around going, yeah, whatever. I've seen spikes before, I've seen roundabouts before, but when of course it goes on fire, they're like, oh, okay. S got real. It's about to go down.
Yeah.
So this is the before, the more calmer, happier, things are okay, la-di-da-di-da. I'm Sonic, I'm Tails, you can't get us, right? And that is why we wanted to give them an expression that was much more matching the scenery.
Yeah.
And if you look, so as you were saying, of course, and we'll see the pictures, the comparison, smiling. And of course, the actual Tails himself, he's also smiling, and you have that differences between the two. So I really like how you could see that, not just from the colouring, but of course from the actual expression as well. And of course everything else, the Chocks, the angling, all the other stuff, it's all the same.
That's right.
Really interesting, really interesting. It'll be really quite interesting to see which people prefer. Do they prefer to see it on fire? Do they like the greenery, the brightness of this version?
I mean, first of all, it's different altogether. I mean, Sonic and Tails together, that's one. Second is based from Sonic 3.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean between the two.
All right, yeah. But I'm just saying.
between the
You said which one will go for, like, who would go for which version, right?
Yeah, but they both have Sonic and Tails. They're both.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying in comparison to any other items out there.
Sure, but I'm just saying just between these two.
Yeah.
Between on fire or not on fire, what kind of does that reflect the personality of the person?
Probably, yeah. I'm just thinking that having something from Sonic 3.
No, yeah, don't get me wrong.
That's special in itself.
No, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the overall piece. But I'm just saying between those two versions, which
and that's why why not both? Why not both?
One for playing.
Complete the whole story. Complete the whole story. The whole story of Act 1.
The one.
Yeah.
There you go. So, Chocks, why don't we actually, before we just quickly go through the measurements?
Yeah, so again, previously we shown the standard version, exclusive version, that came with lights, right, and the fire effect. So this one is slightly a little bit different. Height-wise, measurements, height-wise is going to be exactly the same because the highest point is tail. But this one's slightly different because you don't have the fires that goes around the edges. So it's a little bit shorter, give or take, I would say about an inch to an inch and a half off. And again, for the depth, it's give or take about an inch.
I would say the overall footprint is not too difficult for most collectors, to be honest.
And weight-wise, it's just going to be
something similar. I mean, again, absolutely. And I just want to say, when we come into the end of this documentary, as with any of our products, we just have a bit of a disclaimer to say that we're still not at the we're not at the final production piece stage, if that makes sense. And sometimes there are changes that we do for materials or what have you, that we sort of just give a bit of a disclaimer right now. We do this for all of our pieces to say that subject to structural changes, etc., to make sure that they're okay. Just one more thing before we wrap this one up, Chocks. We obviously have there is no fire effect on Sonic as well, so it's a pure color for him as well. Cool. All right, Chocks. I think all we're going to do now is do a couple of comparison shots of those next to each other.
Sure.
And then we'll do the whole diorama range. How about that?
Okay, yeah, definitely.
All right, so why don't we do a shot of both of them together first, and we'll do that in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, guys. And of course, over here it starts at the very beginning of the game. You're on the first part of the act, Chocks, and everything is happy, everything is cool. Hey, I played this game first time, second time, I managed to beat those, and now we're at the beginning of Sonic 3. He's feeling really confident. He's got his mate Tails. Off they go into Angel Island.
Get those gems back.
Absolutely, going have an issue with Knuckles, etc.
Yeah.
Off they go on a nice adventure, all happy. Off they go, and then what happens, Chocks?
And then
just fire everywhere.
Halfway through Act 1, and here we are. Everything doom and gloom.
And
everything all fiery.
And you can really see the difference now, Chocks, between the different. I mean, look at the differences of the greens. There's a huge difference of the greens. This is incredibly vibrant, this green. And look at yours. It's much more muted. It's much more oranges and yellows and browns in the actual greens themselves. The greens are really kind of darky green. And it's really hard to see the difference between, look, this green and this branch. Clear as day.
Yeah,
which is green and which is brown.
The vine here, the back piece here, this vine, and that vine.
It's just completely night and day in terms of the colours. But then that's what it was. That's what it's like in the actual game. And we really want to be true with
these
that.
fire are all sculpted in, but the OG, the original vines, the greenery, they're all.
Turn it on while you hear that, Chocks.
Okay, they're all in the same place.
I noticed you've gone for solid colour, solid lights.
Don't want to get distracted. And it's like, ooh, intense 5,000. Intensity 3,000, yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah, so, we definitely wanted to make sure that we could really tell the story between before and after. And I'm really happy how that came out, Chocks. Why are you hanging off the pin?
Nice full shot.
Oh, right, okay.
Nice clean shot.
Because you mean you don't come with the statue, right?
That's right.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I mean, really cool.
Yeah.
Now, Chocks, the question is though, how do these compare with the others in the series?
Wow. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's do it in 3, 2, 1. Boom! boom! Check it out, guys! OMG! Now, Chocks, don't drop that because what you're holding there is the original Sonic diorama that we have in the series, and boom, number one right there. Generation started there.
Then Sonic and modern Sonic.
Absolutely. Then we have number 2 right here, Sonic on the biplane.
Yep.
Looking really, really cool. Over here.
End of Sonic 2, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you look at it like this way, of course, end of Sonic 2 goes into Sonic 3, chilling out on Angel Island. Yeah. Then boom, halfway through the the first stage, first act, boom, on fire. Yeah. And of course, OG 25th anniversary right there. What I've got to say, Chocks, I love seeing this development. This is a lot of years of work right here, Chocks, and it's really great to see it expand over the years. And I hope that we can start seeing more and more in this range.
Definitely.
I just know that for next time we do one in this range, we need a bigger table. No, it's good. It's good. All right, Chocks. So normally at this stage, I would give you a high five, but I think you're kind of busy.
I can do it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I can do it. Hold it like a baby.
Okay, go on then. Let's try this then. All right then. That's another one wrapped up, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you have any questions, make sure you come to our Facebook club.
Official Collectors Club on Facebook.
Let us know what you want to see companion pieces, what else you would like to see in this range. We'd love to hear all about that. In the meantime, though, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Anything one more time before we wrap this one up, Chocks?
Come on, Sega fans.
Let's do it. All right then, guys. I'm your host, Alex.
I'm Chocos.
F4F is love.
F4F is life.
And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Later.